The world changed in an instant, though no one could say exactly when it began. One moment the skies were clear, and the next, they were filled with enormous ships that seemed to materialize out of thin air. These vessels hung silently above Earth, their metallic surfaces gleaming faintly in the sunlight. No announcements came from them, no messages transmitted over radio waves or satellite signals. They simply appeared, as if they had always been there. People stared up at the sky, some in awe, others in fear. Social media exploded with videos and photos of the alien fleet, but governments around the globe remained eerily quiet. There were no press conferences, no emergency broadcasts, just silence. For hours, nothing happened. The ships stayed where they were, motionless, watching. Alan Grant was one of the first to notice something strange. He lived in a small town in Ohio, a place where everyone knew each other's business. Alan worked at the local library, a quiet man who preferred books to people. On the morning the ships arrived, he walked outside to fetch the newspaper and stopped, short. His neighbor, Rachel Meyer, was standing on her front porch, shielding her eyes as she gazed upward. "Did you see them?" Rachel asked without turning around. Her voice trembled slightly. Alan nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "Yeah, I saw." Rachel turned to look at him then, her face pale. "Do you think they're here to hurt us?" He didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. Instead, he went back inside, feeling uneasy. That night, neither Alan nor Rachel slept well. When morning came, both were gone. At first, no one paid much attention to their disappearance. People often left town without telling anyone, especially in a close-knit community like theirs. But by the end of the week, more people started vanishing. A family of 4 disappeared from their home overnight, leaving behind half-eaten dinners still sitting on the dining table. An elderly couple was last seen walking their dog near the park. The dog returned alone, its leash trailing behind it. Even children weren't spared. 2 siblings playing in their backyard vanished while their mother was inside making lunch. Eric Dawson noticed the pattern before most people did. As a journalist, he spent his days scrolling through social media feeds, looking for stories that mainstream outlets missed. It wasn't hard to spot the growing number of posts about missing persons. At first glance, they seemed unrelated. A teenager gone missing in California, a businessman failing to show up for work in New York, a farmer not answering his phone in Kansas. But Eric saw the connection. All these disappearances occurred within hours of the alien fleet's arrival. Curiosity got the better hand of him. Eric decided to dig deeper. He reached out to Lisa Monroe, an astrophysicist whose name frequently appeared in articles about space exploration. Lisa was known for speaking her mind, particularly when it came to criticizing government secrecy surrounding extraterrestrial phenomena. She agreed to meet Eric at a cafe downtown, though she sounded hesitant on the phone. When they sat down together, Lisa wasted no time getting to the point. "You're right to suspect something," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "This isn't random. Those ships are connected to the disappearances, I'm sure of it." "How can you be so certain?" Eric asked. "Because we've seen this kind of behavior before," Lisa replied. "Not from aliens, but from ourselves. When humans explore new territories, we don't always announce our presence. We observe first, gather information. If those ships are doing the same thing, then taking individuals would make sense. They'd want to study us. But why now? Why after all this time do they suddenly show up?" Lisa shrugged. "Maybe they ran out of options. Or maybe we finally crossed some threshold they were waiting for. Either way, we need to figure out what's happening before it's too late." Eric leaned forward, lowering his voice. "What if it already is too late? What if they're not just studying us, they're harvesting us?" Lisa didn't respond immediately. Her expression darkened, and Eric realized she might have already considered that possibility. Before either of them could say anything else, the cafe's television flickered to life with breaking news. The screen showed footage of another ship descending closer to Earth's atmosphere. This one looked different, larger, darker, almost menacing. The anchor's voice was calm but urgent. Authorities urged citizens to remain indoors and avoid unnecessary travel until further notice. Eric glanced at Lisa. "We should go." She nodded, grabbing her bag. Outside, the streets were eerily empty. Cars sat abandoned at intersections, their engines still running. Storefronts were locked tight, windows covered with hastily pulled blinds. The air felt heavy, charged with anticipation. As they drove toward the outskirts of the city, Eric couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move just a little too slowly. Every sound carried a weight it shouldn't. They passed by neighborhoods where lights burned in every window, families huddled together in fear. When they reached Rachel Meyer's house, Eric parked the car and stepped out cautiously. The front door was wide open, swinging gently in the breeze. Inside, the house was untouched, as if Rachel had simply stepped out for a moment and forgotten to close the door behind her. On the kitchen counter lay a cup of tea, cold and undrunk. "This doesn't make sense," Eric muttered, running a hand through his hair. "If someone took her, why leave everything like this?" "Because they don't care about covering their tracks," Lisa said softly. "They don't need to. We're powerless against them." Eric wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but he couldn't find the words. Instead, he followed her back to the car, glancing once more at the open doorway. Something told him they wouldn't find answers here, or anywhere else on Earth. Whatever was happening, it was beyond human understanding, and yet Eric couldn't stop himself from trying. The disappearances continued to spread, growing more frequent and widespread with each passing day. Entire towns began vanishing overnight, leaving behind empty streets and untouched homes. The world watched in stunned silence as reports flooded in from every corner of the globe. Yet despite the mounting evidence, no one seemed willing or able to piece together what was truly happening. Eric Dawson and Lisa Monroe traveled to a small, isolated town in Nebraska that had recently been abandoned. It was a place few people outside the state had ever heard of, but its sudden emptiness made headlines. Hoping to uncover clues, Eric and Lisa drove through the desolate streets, their car kicking up clouds of dust. The air felt heavy, almost oppressive, as if the town itself was holding its breath. They stopped at a gas station on the edge of town. The pumps were still operational, though no one stood behind the counter. Inside, shelves were stocked with snacks and drinks untouched since the last customer walked out. A newspaper lay open on the counter, dated the day before the town disappeared. Its front page carried a blurry photo of the alien fleet hovering above Earth's atmosphere. "This is surreal," Eric said, picking up the paper. "It's like everyone just left." "Not everyone," Lisa replied, pointing toward a nearby house. Through the window, they could see a faint light flickering inside. Curious, they approached the house cautiously. The door creaked open when Eric pushed it, revealing a dimly lit living room. Paintings covered the walls, abstract shapes and swirling colors that seemed to pulse in the low light. In the center of the room sat a woman, her back to them, hunched over a canvas. She didn't turn around when they entered. "Hello?" Eric called out, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet space. The woman finally looked over her shoulder. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, but there was an intensity to her gaze that made Eric uneasy. "You shouldn't be here," she said, simply. "We're looking for answers," Lisa said, stepping forward. "Do you know what happened to the people who lived here?" The woman studied them for a moment before nodding slowly. "I saw them," she whispered. "I saw them take them." "Who took them?" Eric asked, his heart pounding. "They came in the night," the woman continued, ignoring his question. "Like shadows, moving without sound. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They just took." "Aliens?" Lisa pressed, her voice trembling. The woman nodded again. "Yes. Aliens." She gestured toward her paintings where dark figures loomed against backgrounds of stars and voids. "This is what they look like. Or at least, this is how I remember them." Eric moved closer to examine the artwork. The figures were humanoid but distorted, their forms fluid and shifting. Some had elongated limbs, Others appeared to melt into the ground beneath them. Each painting radiated a sense of dread, as though capturing something beyond human comprehension. "How do you know they're responsible?" Eric asked, turning back to the woman. "Because I saw it happen," she snapped, her voice rising. "I hid in my basement while they swept through the streets. I watched them drag people away. And then when they were done, they left me behind." "Why would they leave you?" Lisa wondered aloud. "I don't know," the woman admitted, her tone softer now. "Maybe they thought I wasn't worth taking, or maybe—" She trailed off, staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Maybe they wanted someone to tell the story." Her name was Claire Bennett, she explained, a reclusive artist who had lived in the town for years. She rarely interacted with her neighbors, preferring solitude and the comfort of her work. Now she wished she had reached out more often, built connections with the people who had vanished. Instead, she was alone, haunted by memories she couldn't erase. Determined to find proof, Eric and Lisa searched the town further. They combed through empty houses, abandoned cars, and deserted shops, hoping to find some clue that might explain the disappearances. It wasn't until they reached the town square that they discovered something unusual. In the center of the square stood a stone fountain, its water long since dried up. Around the base of the fountain, strange markings had been etched into the pavement. They weren't random scratches or graffiti. They formed intricate patterns that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Eric knelt down to examine them more closely, running his fingers over the grooves. "What are these?" he murmured. Lisa frowned, studying the symbols. "They look familiar," she said after a moment. "I've seen something like this before, in satellite images of the alien ships." "You think they're connected?" Eric asked, standing up. "It's possible," Lisa replied. "If these symbols are tied to the aliens, maybe they're trying to communicate, or maybe they're marking territory. Or maybe they're mapping coordinates," Eric suggested, his mind racing. Pointing somewhere specific. Claire joined them, her expression unreadable as she gazed at the markings. "I've seen those too," she said quietly. "They started appearing after the ships arrived. I thought they were part of my imagination at first, but now you're not so sure," Eric finished for her. She shook her head. "No, I'm not." Convinced the symbols held the key to understanding the disappearances, the trio decided to seek help decoding them. Lisa suggested reaching out to Dr. Henry Blake, a retired linguist known for his expertise in ancient languages. Though reluctant, at first Blake eventually agreed to meet them at his secluded cabin in the mountains. The journey to Blake's home was long and arduous, winding through dense forests and narrow roads barely wide enough for their car. When they finally arrived, they found him sitting on the porch smoking a pipe and staring at the horizon. His hair was gray, his face lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "What brings you here?" he asked, his voice gravelly, but firm. "We need your help," Lisa said, showing him photos of the symbols. "Do you recognize these?" Blake studied the images for a long moment, his brow furrowing. "Where did you find these?" he asked, his tone serious. "In a town that's been abandoned," Eric replied. "We think they're connected to the alien fleet." Blake sighed heavily, setting the photos aside. "You're right to tread carefully," he said. "These aren't just symbols, they're instructions. Coordinates, perhaps, but leading where, I can't say." "Can you help us figure it out?" Lisa asked. Blake hesitated, then nodded. "I'll try, but you should know. The answers you seek may not bring comfort." As Blake worked tirelessly to decode the symbols, Eric, Lisa, and Claire waited anxiously. Days turned into nights, and the weight of their mission grew heavier with each passing hour. They knew time was running out. If the aliens returned, there might not be another chance to uncover the truth. And yet, even as they pursued answers, Eric couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. Movements caught in the corner of his eye vanished when he turned to look. He tried to convince himself it was paranoia, but deep down, he wasn't so sure. Whatever the symbols meant, one thing was clear. Humanity was playing a dangerous game, one it might not survive. Dr. Henry Blake worked tirelessly, his hands trembling slightly as he traced the patterns of the symbols onto sheets of paper. Eric, Lisa, and Claire watched him from a distance, their nerves stretched thin. The cabin was small and cluttered, filled with stacks of books and papers that threatened to topple over at any moment. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, adding an eerie backdrop to the tension inside. After hours of silence, Blake finally leaned back in his chair, his face pale but resolute. "I've figured it out," he said, his voice low and steady. "These aren't just coordinates, they're directions. They point downward." "Downward?" Lisa asked, frowning. "What do you mean?" "They lead underground," Blake explained, spreading the decoded map across the table. "Deep beneath Earth's surface. There's a facility hidden there, one that matches these coordinates perfectly." Eric stared at the map, his stomach twisting into knots. "A facility? What kind of facility?" Blake hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. Decades ago, rumors circulated about secret government projects involving extraterrestrial technology. Some claimed humans had made contact long before anyone realized. If this map is accurate, then whatever happened back then is tied directly to what's happening now. Claire stepped forward, her eyes wide with fear. "You're saying the aliens have been here before, that they've been watching us for years?" "It's possible," Blake admitted. "If so, the disappearances might not be random. They could be part of an agreement, a deal struck between our governments and theirs." Eric felt a chill run down his spine. "An agreement? You mean we're giving them people in exchange for what? Technology? Power?" Blake didn't answer immediately. Instead, he folded his arms and looked away, his expression grim. "I don't know the specifics, but history shows us that when desperate measures are taken, morality often takes a back seat. If humanity gained something valuable enough, sacrifices might have seemed justified, at least to those making the decisions." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Lisa broke the quiet first, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to see this place for ourselves. If there's proof of what's really going on, it'll be there." Blake nodded reluctantly. "If you go, tread carefully. Whatever lies beneath that facility won't welcome intruders." The journey to the location marked on the map took them deep into the Nevada desert, where barren landscape stretched endlessly under a blazing sun. The air shimmered with heat, distorting the horizon until it felt like they were driving straight into a mirage. Eventually, they reached a rocky plateau, its surface scarred by craters and abandoned machinery. Hidden beneath a camouflage net lay the entrance to the underground facility, a heavy steel door embedded into the ground. "This is it," Eric said, stepping out of the car. His voice echoed strangely in the open space, swallowed almost instantly by the vast emptiness around them. Lisa approached the door cautiously, inspecting the keypad beside it. "It's locked," she said, frustration creeping into her tone. "We'll need a code to get in." Claire knelt down, examining the dirt near the base of the door. "Look," she said, pointing to faint scuff marks in the sand. "Someone's been here recently." Before anyone could respond, the sound of engines roared in the distance. A convoy of black vehicles appeared on the horizon, kicking up clouds of dust as they sped toward the group. Armed soldiers poured out of the trucks, surrounding them with weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," one of the soldiers barked, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. Eric raised his hands slowly, his mind racing. Beside him, Lisa and Claire followed suit, their faces pale with fear. Blake remained in the car, his presence unnoticed by the soldiers who now controlled the scene. As the soldiers closed in, another figure emerged from the lead vehicle. It wasn't human. The being stood taller than the soldiers, its body encased in a sleek silver suit that shimmered unnaturally in the sunlight. Its face was obscured by a reflective visor, making it impossible to read its expression or even confirm if it had one. "You have trespassed," the alien said, its voice resonating not from its mouth but directly within their minds. The words were cold, devoid of emotion, yet carried an undeniable authority. Eric swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "Who are you? Why are you taking people?" The alien tilted its head slightly as if considering the question. Your species has agreed to this arrangement, it replied. In return for knowledge and advancement, you provide subjects for our needs. What needs? Lisa demanded, her voice shaking. Why take innocent people? The alien paused, as though debating whether to answer. Finally, it spoke again. Survival requires resources. Your planet offers both abundance and compatibility. We do not ask permission, we fulfill necessity. So you just take whoever you want? Eric shot back, anger rising in his chest. Without explaining why, without letting anyone know. Explanation invites resistance, the alien responded. Ignorance ensures compliance. Claire stepped forward suddenly, her voice trembling but defiant. And what about those of us left behind? Do you think we won't notice? Do you think we'll forget? The alien turned its gaze toward her, the reflective surface of its visor catching the light. Memory fades, fear remains. Humanity prefers comfort to truth. Before anyone could respond, the alien raised a hand, signaling the soldiers to move in. Within moments, Eric, Lisa, and Claire were restrained and led toward the facility's entrance. The steel door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dark corridor lined with flickering fluorescent lights. Inside, the walls were cold and sterile, the air thick with the scent of metal and chemicals. The group was marched deeper into the complex, past rooms filled with strange equipment and monitors displaying incomprehensible data. At the end of the hallway, they entered a large chamber dominated by a massive screen projecting images of Earth from space. Beneath the screen stood rows of tanks, each containing a floating figure suspended in a glowing green liquid. Oh my God, Lisa whispered, her voice breaking. They're alive. Eric struggled against his restraints, rage boiling inside him. This is monstrous. You're experimenting on people. The alien regarded him calmly. Understanding precedes coexistence. Your species resisted initial attempts at communication. This method proved more efficient. You call this efficiency? Eric spat. You're stealing lives. Lives are finite, the alien countered. Progress is eternal. As the confrontation escalated, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed overhead, casting the room in an ominous glow. The alien turned abruptly, its attention shifting to a nearby console. On the screen, new ships appeared in orbit above Earth, their shapes larger and darker than the ones already present. What's happening? Eric demanded, seizing the moment of distraction. The alien hesitated, then replied. Reinforcements. Your actions have drawn attention. Decisions must be expedited. With that, the alien signaled the soldiers to escort the group out of the chamber. As they were dragged away, Eric caught one last glimpse of the tanks and the lifeless faces inside. Them. His heart sank, but a spark of determination burned within him. No matter what happened next, he vowed to expose the truth, even if it cost him everything. The facility grew darker as they descended further underground, the hum of machinery growing louder with each step. Whatever awaited them below, Eric knew it wouldn't be easy to escape, but he also knew one thing for certain. Humanity deserved to know the price of its bargains, no matter how painful the revelation might be. The group was pushed deeper into the facility, their footsteps echoing in the narrow corridors. The air grew colder with each step, carrying a metallic tang that made it hard to breathe. Soldiers flanked them on all sides, their weapons trained and ready. Eric tried to keep his focus, but fear gnawed at the edges of his mind. He glanced at Lisa and Claire, both pale and trembling, and felt a surge of guilt for dragging them into this nightmare. They were led into a large, circular room dominated by a massive console in the center. Screens lined the walls, displaying streams of data and images of Earth from space. In the middle of the room stood another alien, taller and more imposing than the one they had encountered earlier. Its silver suit gleamed under the harsh lights, and its visor reflected the glow of the monitors like a mirror. The soldiers stopped abruptly, forcing Eric, Lisa, and Claire to their knees. You have disrupted operations, the alien said, its voice resonating directly in their minds. It wasn't loud, but the weight of its words pressed down on them like a physical force. This cannot continue. Eric looked up, his jaw clenched. What do you want from us? Why are you doing this? The alien tilted its head slightly as if studying him. Your species seeks answers yet fears the cost of knowing. We offer solutions, advancements beyond your understanding, but such gifts require sacrifice. Sacrifice? Lisa spat, her voice trembling with anger. You're taking people against their will, you're killing them. The alien's reflective visor turned toward her, unreadable. Death is not our intent. Survival is. Your planet provides resources we need to endure. Humanity benefits in return. Benefits? Claire interjected, her voice rising. How does stealing our lives benefit us? The alien paused, as if considering how much to reveal. Finally, it spoke again. Centuries ago, your leaders agreed to this arrangement. They offered subjects in exchange for technology. Diseases cured, energy sources unlocked, lifespans extended, all outcomes of our partnership. Eric stared at the alien, disbelief warring with horror. You're saying our government sold us out? That they've been giving you people for years? Agreements evolve, the alien replied. Initially, only criminals and outcasts were selected. Over time, criteria expanded. Now, necessity dictates choice. Necessity? Eric repeated, his voice shaking with fury. That's just an excuse. You're no better than invaders. The alien didn't respond immediately. Instead, it gestured toward one of the screens, which displayed footage of cities bustling with life. Cars moved along streets, planes soared through skies, and satellites orbited Earth. Your civilization thrives because of us, it said coldly. Without our intervention, your species would stagnate, or worse, destroy itself. Lisa shook her head, tears streaming down her face. That doesn't justify what you're doing. No one asked for this. No one agreed to be taken. Silence ensures stability, the alien countered. Questions lead to resistance. Resistance leads to conflict. Conflict threatens survival. Eric felt a lump form in his throat. The alien's logic was twisted, but there was a chilling efficiency to it. Every word it spoke revealed a calculated indifference, as though humanity's suffering was merely collateral damage in a larger equation. Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared louder, red lights flashing across the room. The alien turned sharply, its attention shifting to a nearby monitor. On the screen, new ships appeared in orbit above Earth, larger, darker, and far more menacing than the ones already present. What's happening? Eric demanded, seizing the moment of distraction. The alien hesitated, then replied. Reinforcements. Your actions have drawn attention. Decisions must be expedited. With that, it signaled the soldiers to move the group out of the room. They were dragged back into the corridor where chaos reigned. Other soldiers rushed past them, shouting orders in a language Eric couldn't understand. The facility seemed to come alive with activity, machines whirring and doors slamming shut. As they were marched further underground, Eric noticed something strange. The walls were lined with glass panels, each revealing a different scene. Some showed barren landscapes, others depicted lush forests or sprawling oceans. But none of them matched Earth's geography. Where are we? Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise. I don't know, Eric replied, his heart pounding. But I don't think we're still on Earth. Claire gripped his arm tightly, her knuckles white. Do you think they're going to take us somewhere else? Before Eric could answer, the group was shoved into a small chamber. The door slid shut behind them, sealing them inside. A low hum filled the air as the walls began to glow faintly, casting an eerie light over their faces. This isn't good, Lisa murmured, backing away from the shimmering surface. Eric scanned the room, searching for a way out. There were no handles, no seams, just smooth, unbroken metal. Stay calm, he said, though his own voice betrayed his fear. We'll figure something out. Suddenly, the glowing intensified and the air around them crackled with energy. Eric felt a strange sensation, as if the floor beneath his feet had vanished. His vision blurred, and for a moment, he thought he might pass out. Then, everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself standing in a vast, open space. The sky above was a swirling mass of colors, unlike anything he had ever seen. Strange structures loomed in the distance, their shapes shifting and morphing, as if alive. Beside him, Lisa and Claire looked equally disoriented. "Where are we?" Claire stammered, clutching her arms tightly. "I don't know," Eric admitted, his voice hollow. "But I think we've been brought here to make a choice." A figure materialized before them, the same alien who had addressed them earlier. It regarded them silently for a moment, then spoke. "Your species stands at a crossroads. Continue as you are, ignorant of the truth, or embrace knowledge and accept responsibility." "What kind of choice is that?" Lisa demanded, her voice breaking. "You've already decided for us." The alien tilted its head. "Decisions shape destiny. Yours will determine humanity's future." Eric took a step forward, his fists clenched. "If you really want us to choose, then give us a real option. Stop taking people. Stop hiding behind lies and half-truths." For the first time, the alien's expression seemed to change. Its visor flickered faintly, and when it spoke again, its tone carried a hint of uncertainty. Change carries risk. "Are you prepared to bear the consequences?" Eric hesitated, glancing at Lisa and Claire. Both looked terrified but resolute. Finally, he nodded. "Yes. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." The alien studied him for a long moment, then raised a hand. The swirling sky above began to shift, forming patterns that resembled the symbols they had seen earlier. "Very well," it said. "Your decision will be recorded. What follows is yours to endure." With that, the alien vanished, leaving the three of them alone in the surreal landscape. The structures around them began to dissolve, replaced by a bright, blinding light. Eric shielded his eyes, unsure whether they were being sent back to Earth or somewhere far worse. As the light consumed them, Eric realized one thing for certain. Humanity's fate now rested in their hands. Whether they liked it or not, the truth would come to light and the world would never be the same. When the light faded, Eric, Lisa, and Claire found themselves back on Earth. They stood in the middle of a deserted street, surrounded by empty buildings, and silence so thick it felt suffocating. The sky above was clear, but the alien fleet still loomed in orbit, its presence impossible to ignore. For a moment, none of them spoke. They simply stared at their surroundings, trying to process what had just happened. "Are we back?" Claire finally asked, her voice trembling. "I think so," Eric replied, though he wasn't entirely sure. Everything looked familiar, yet different somehow, as if the world had shifted slightly while they were gone. He glanced at Lisa, who was staring at the ground, her face pale and drawn. "What did they mean by, 'Your decision will be recorded'?" she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "What happens now?" Eric didn't have an answer. All he knew was that something had changed, something big. Whatever choice they'd made in that strange, otherworldly place, it had consequences. And those consequences would ripple through humanity, whether people were ready for them or not. Days turned into weeks, and life seemed to return to normal, or at least as normal as it could be, with massive alien ships hovering silently above the planet. Governments continued to stay silent about the disappearances, issuing vague statements about global cooperation and technological advancements. News outlets focused on breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and space exploration, crediting classified research programs for the sudden leaps forward. But no one mentioned the aliens or the cost of their gifts. Eric tried to expose the truth. He wrote articles detailing everything he'd seen: the underground facility, the tanks filled with floating bodies, the aliens' cold explanation of humanity's bargain. He posted videos online, describing the symbols, the coordinates, and the horrifying reality hidden beneath the surface. At first, his work gained some traction. People shared his posts, commented on his videos, and demanded answers from their leaders. But then slowly, interest waned. Comments grew fewer, shares dwindled, and eventually, his content disappeared altogether. Algorithms buried his posts, under waves of distractions, celebrity gossip, sports highlights, viral memes. It was as if the world didn't want to hear what he had to say. Or maybe, Eric thought bitterly, they couldn't bear to face it. Lisa returned to her lab, though she wasn't the same afterward. She spent hours poring over data, searching for traces of the aliens' influence in human technology. Sometimes, late at night, she would call Eric, her voice low and urgent. "I found something," she'd say. "Another pattern, another connection." But when Eric asked her to share her findings publicly, she hesitated. "They're watching," she whispered one evening, her tone heavy with fear. "I can feel it. If I say too much, they'll come for me." Eric wanted to tell her she was being paranoid, but deep down he knew she was right. The aliens hadn't left. They were still here, observing, waiting. And they weren't the only ones. Government agents began tailing Eric, showing up wherever he went. They never approached him directly, but their presence was unmistakable, a constant reminder that he was being watched. Claire retreated further into isolation, painting endless canvases filled with dark shapes and shadowy figures. Her once vivid colors dulled, replaced by shades of gray and black. When Eric visited her, she barely spoke, her eyes distant and haunted. "They're still taking people," she said once, her voice barely audible. "Every night I hear them. They're coming closer." Eric tried to reassure her, but his words felt hollow even to himself. He couldn't protect her or anyone else from what was happening. All he could do was keep digging, keep searching for a way to fight back. Months passed and the disappearances slowed but didn't stop. Entire communities remained abandoned, their homes standing empty like ghost towns. Social media feeds were flooded with conspiracy theories, most of which were dismissed as nonsense. Yet amid the noise, a few voices persisted, people who refused to let the truth fade away. One day, Eric received a message from an anonymous sender. It contained a single file, a video clip taken inside the underground facility. The footage showed rows of tanks, each containing a floating figure suspended in green liquid. A timestamp in the corner confirmed it was recent. Eric's hands trembled as he watched, his stomach churning with anger and despair. Attached to the video was a note. "You're not alone. Others are waking up." For the first time in months, Eric felt a flicker of hope. Maybe humanity wasn't as blind as it seemed. Maybe there were others out there who cared enough to ask questions, to demand answers. Determined to find them, Eric reached out to every nameless account that had shared his posts, every commenter who had expressed doubt about the official narrative. Slowly, a network began to form, a loose coalition of skeptics, researchers, and ordinary citizens united by a shared desire for the truth. Together, they pieced together fragments of information, connecting dots that governments and corporations worked tirelessly to obscure. They uncovered evidence of secret experiments, covert agreements, and cover-ups spanning decades. Each discovery fueled their resolve, driving them to dig deeper despite the risks. But the aliens weren't idle. As the movement grew, so did the pressure. More people vanished, often without explanation. Agents infiltrated the group, sowing discord and mistrust. Some members gave up, overwhelmed by fear. Others disappeared entirely, their fates unknown. Through it all, Eric pressed on. He knew the odds were against them, that exposing the truth might not change anything. But he also knew one thing for certain. Humanity deserved to know the price of its bargains. Even if the knowledge came too late to undo the damage, it mattered. Ignorance wasn't bliss. It was a prison, and Eric refused to stay locked inside. In the end, the question lingered unanswered. Why had no one inquired about the alien fleet? Perhaps because deep down, humanity understood the cost of asking, and feared the price of knowing. But for Eric, Lisa, Claire, and the growing number of people joining their cause, ignorance was no longer an option. Whatever the future held, they would face it with eyes wide open. And so the fight continued, not with weapons or armies, but with courage, determination, and an unshakable belief that the truth however painful, was worth fighting for.